Hi there and welcome to a quick little review slash unboxing of the brand new Fellow Ode. If you've been following Fellow's Kickstarter, you would know that this was announced on December 13th, 2019, and ever since then, the coffee world has gone crazy. Everybody wants to get their hands on this, and they just finally shipped out to Canada. I'm super stoked to have gotten my hands on one. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. So let's get this thing unboxed. Ooh la la. First thing you see is quite a cool design on how they package this grinder. If you know Fellow at all, you would know they have a modern, beautiful way of creating their products. You could expect nothing less. Now to get this thing off. Whew. I'm a sucker for design, that's for sure. First thing we see, it's not a conspiracy, it's just good coffee. They had that whole Bigfoot campaign going on when they were making everybody guess what Fellow was going to design and come up with next. Through a series of clues and investigation, we found out that Mr. Ode was shortly on its way. Now to get into the beast. It's much smaller than I thought it was going to be, which is good. That is a good thing. Dang. We got the hopper lid here. Gives you a nice diagram. Come in handy right underneath the hopper lid there. And the infamous magnetic catcher. Actually doesn't click as much as I thought it would. Let's get some close-up shots of this bad boy. They really simplified the design of this grinder. Like, there's not too many things going on, but there's a lot going on. Main thing, you got your hopper. It's an 80-gram hopper maximum. That's mainly to encourage people not to store the whole bag of beans in there. Fellow wants you to be able to do single dose grinds and not have to worry about all your beans going stale before you use them. Grinding your beans and then brewing is always going to be the freshest way. Inside the hopper lid, there is a ton of little settings here. There's 31 grind settings in the Ode, and it ranges all the way from the Fellow Prismo, which is their attachment for the AeroPress. It makes espresso-like coffee, but this is not an espresso grinder, just to be clear. It goes all the way from Prismo to pour overs to French press and all the way over to cold brew. You got this big dial on the front here. This will be my first time clicking it. Ooh. You can feel those 64mm burrs in there. I mainly do V60s and Kalitas, AeroPress as well. I don't do anything too crazy, so they recommend sticking around the 4 to 5 range for that, so I'll probably just start off there and then I'll dial in from there. One of the main reasons I wanted to get this was, first off, it's Fellow. I actually don't have too many Fellow products. I have the Carter mug and that's about it. One day I'll upgrade my kettle to a Fellow, but for now this is a great investment. I currently have the Baratza Encore, and I'll get into more of this later because I'm going to do a little test between the two of them. What Fellow has to offer in this grinder, mainly the noise reduction, and they got this cool little knocker here instead of smacking the sides of my Baratza, I'll be able to do that. There are lots of reviews out there already, so I'm not gonna do like a big in-depth review. I can link a couple in the description below, but this is mainly just a first impressions slash me telling you my thoughts about it. One thing that you'll notice too, if you ever get your hands on one of these, is that it's pretty heavy. It's got grips on the bottom, so it's not moving anywhere when you grind. Overall, this thing seems solid. Then we got this little catcher right here. It's got a what seems like a rubber lid here, and if you look inside, you can see these cool little fins here. This is to help you when you pour out your coffee grounds into your brewing device. Now there is a magnetic spot here to snap your catcher in place. That can sometimes affect grinds getting stuck in here. So we'll see how that goes. I've heard the grind retention on this grinder is pretty good. And I'm not, that's the most snap I'm getting out of this right now. Those are some of the main features that I wanted to share with you guys. Now let's get into some testing. We're gonna use 16 grams, which is my normal dosage for any V60, any Kalita. That's my basic everyday dose. Keeping the dose small so that bag of beans lasts longer. And for me, if I drink too much coffee at once, I get a big buzz, so I just stick to a nice 16 gram dosage. All right, let's get into some comparisons here between the Fellow Ode and my previous grinder, the Baratza Encore. Now visually you can see that there's some obvious differences. This is a little bit taller. This guy feels more durable. This is all plastic. The Baratza has served me well for almost 2 years now. It's quite loud. The two main things that I really want to test and that I'm hoping the Fellow will offer me is one, a quieter grind, because I'm a father, I have 2 little ones, and when I wake up early in the morning, I have to grind beans in this guy, and I literally have to wrap a towel around this Baratza so it doesn't wake up my children. And number 2, it's speed. The Baratza is probably average to grind your coffee, but I've heard incredible things of how quickly the Fellow Ode can grind. So those are the 2 main things that I really want to get into. Okay, let's get into some testing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Baratza catcher and just put it on the scale, turn my scale on, and then remove it. And then once I grind my coffee, this should tell me what my output is when I'm done grinding in the Baratza. We're going to be recording the noise level for the Baratza and for the Fellow. So this will be a little test. It's just a free little app on the iTunes store, so we'll see what it gives us. Okay. So that said, it maxed out at 92.7 decibels. And that took a long time to grind. Got my grinds in here. Now let's see. 15.8, so it's pretty close actually. Normally I have to give the Baratza, like I said, a little smack on the side and a couple extra pulses. Now if we take it out again, we're still at 50. So that theory didn't really work. But as you can see, it's still pretty close. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing with the Fellow Ode. Okay. Same test here. We're just gonna zero out the scale and then take off our catcher. Put our lid on, which I'll remove after I'm done grinding. Let it be known, I'm actually gonna be grinding at a 2 + 2 notches. I've heard that this is a good setting to start your pour overs with, so I'm gonna go with that. And let's test it with the Fellow Ode. As you can see, the Fellow Ode topped off at 87.8, so it's actually not that much quieter, surprisingly. Maybe it's because there's like, it's in a metal casing and not plastic, that it's gonna seem like it's not as loud. So hopefully this doesn't end up waking our kids up. I thought it would be a much more drastic difference, but we will, we're gonna have to live with it. Give it a 1, 2, 3. As you can see, we got a lot of coffee particles here. There's kind of coffee everywhere. This is kind of what I was worried about as far as the magnetic process goes. All this extra static is just holding the grounds over here. I've heard Fellow talk about putting water in your beans before you grind them, just like a drop, and then grind them so it reduces the static. But that seems like a problem that could be fixed if you didn't have the magnetic thing going on and had a different solution for that. All right, let's see what we dosed in at. And we are at 16. That's pretty impressive, actually. So there we have it. Those are the main tests that I really wanted to do between these two grinders. Let's start off with the noise levels of each of these grinders. The Baratza maxed out 5 decibels louder than the Ode. To me, I thought that the Ode would be way less noisier than that. It is still pretty quiet, but I was expecting it to be at least 10 decibels lower, but maybe that's just my bad expectations there. One thing that I will say about the noise levels between the two is that this Baratza, it's made out of plastic, the hopper's plastic. When your beans are grinding in the hopper, maybe it just like echoes through the plastic and just makes it super, super loud, which is why I have to wrap a towel around this thing. Whereas the Ode, it's made out of, I mean, I'm assuming it's metal. There is some plastic here. The Ode is pretty heavy, so maybe that it's actually like stationed and like kind of stuck in the spot. Maybe it's not moving around. Maybe there's less space for noise to travel when it's compact right inside this solid body. I think that plays into why it's quieter than the Baratza. Jumping into our next test, you saw how quickly the Ode ground the coffee compared to the Baratza. The Ode can grind super, super quick, and as you saw, the Baratza takes a little bit longer. The Ode will keep trying to grind out any particles and any resistance that it feels that's still in there, and then as you saw, it'll beep, which is kind of a nice feature. I've ground a couple cups of coffee on this Ode, and it is still new and it might need calibrated, but as you can see, I'm down on the number 1 setting here, and it still feels a little coarse, surprisingly, so I think I'm just gonna have to play with that. Fellow says around 10 pounds of coffee should go through it and then calibrate it, but I might just have to go ahead and do it anyways. I don't want my coffee beans grinding coarser than I want them to. On a 10 or an 11 on the Baratza, that was like a nice sweet spot for all my V60s, all my pour-overs at home. I find that the 10 on the Baratza is around the number 2 on this, which means that I have this entire dial still that I'm not using. Hopefully by calibrating this, I'll be able to actually get that grind size that I want on the finer side. The Ode is supposed to grind fine enough for the Prismo. I'm gonna have to play with that a little bit. Maybe I'll post an update eventually, but as of right now, it's even at a 1, it's grinding a little bit coarse. So I'm gonna have to probably calibrate that. Now let's jump into some pricing here. The Baratza is $200 Canadian, and you can get it on Amazon. The Fellow comes in at $420, doubling the price of the Baratza, and that's a smack to the face right there. That's you're paying for the name, you're paying for the look, you're also paying for the quality and everything that gets put into the grinder. So to sum everything together, the Ode is a quieter, quicker grinder than the Baratza. The Ode is much more expensive than the Baratza. So if you're not really worried about a noise level or how quickly your grinder can grind your beans, the Baratza Encore would most likely be your best bang for your buck. There's a lot of good things with the Baratza. It's been on the scene for a long time, and a lot of people recommend it, especially for a first grinder, which it was my first electric grinder. I've never had an issue with it, which is fantastic. If you don't have a bunch of money to fork out for the Ode and you want a grinder, I would say steer towards the Baratza. I know people who've had the Baratza for 10 years now and they've never had an issue. In my situation, being a dad, grinding coffee really early in the morning, and I'm talking like 5 a.m. before anybody's awake here, I wanted a grinder that I don't have to wrap a towel around to suppress the noise. It just so happens to be beautiful, grinds really quick. And as I said before, I'm a sucker for design. When I see the Ode, I feel inspired. I want to make coffee in this thing. I'm pretty happy with the Ode. It looks great on the shelf. It feels fun to grind coffee with. It feels like I'm bringing that cafe experience home. There are certain parts I'll miss about the Baratza, but I am hopeful for upgrades in the future for the Ode, maybe bringing in those espresso burrs that they've been talking about. Overall, I'm pretty stoked to welcome the Fellow Ode into my family. So there you have it, the Fellow Ode. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're not following me on Instagram, I post a lot about coffee and family. Those are my main two passions in life. I love my family and I love coffee. Shoot me a message on Instagram letting me know if you have any of the same issues that I'm having with the Fellow Ode. Hopefully this video gives you an honest review and helps you decide if you're jumping into an electric grinder for the first time, if you're looking at a Baratza, or if you're looking at the Ode or any other ones. Now you at least have a little idea of what the Baratza Encore can offer and what the Fellow Ode can offer. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.